Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sanandani, and I'm an entrepreneur who has been associated with Inside IIM since 2022. In this webinar, we have with us a consultant at World Bank who is also an alum of Yale University and has previously worked as a research associate at MIT. Please welcome Ms. Preksha Jain. We will talk about her education journey from DU to Yale and her work journey from Bain to World Bank. It is a great opportunity for all of us to understand the aspiration, opportunities, and choices that can help you understand what we want in our own careers. So, guys, if you have any questions during the presentation, please comment on the live chat. We'll take them up at the end of the session as usual. So, really great having you here, Preksha, and want to learn so much from your experiences.
Thanks for having me, Sanandani. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Great. So to begin with, Preksha, you had a similar dilemma as most of us had, engineering or something else. So tell us about maybe your 11th and 12th times when you were at that crossroad. Did you think through all your decisions or went with the flow?
I think I thought through all of my decisions. I was always interested in science and mathematics. As a kid, I was good at studies. And, at that juncture in life, when you're trying to make that decision, you think about what options you want to eliminate if you're not clear about, what you want to do in specific. For some people, it's clear that they want to be a doctor or an engineer, from the get-go. But with me, that was not the case. I wanted to keep my options open. I come from a family with, lots of engineers, software engineers, and professionals. So engineering could have been the natural choice, and I didn't want to close that option, even though I was not, clear if I wanted to be an engineer. So I took up science, physics, chemistry, mathematics. But along with that, I wanted to sort of diversify and included economics as my fifth subject. So that was sort of the beginning of my burgeoning interest in economics, which sort of defined my career going forward.
And did you have a goal in mind, maybe something you were chasing after, some global social thing, or maybe career aspects?
No, at that point, it was just figuring out what I like, doing well in school. Just, 12th grade is supposed to be an important time of your life. The grades matter and are looked at throughout your career. So I wanted to do well in school, but I also joined a coaching institute for helping me prepare for engineering entrance exams, just because I didn't want to regret at a later point of time if I decided to go ahead and want to become an engineer, that I did not succeed because I did not take the requisite coaching or preparation. So I did that, but by the end of the 2 years, it started becoming clear to me that that was not the path that I wanted to go on. And economics, like the subjects that we studied, micro and macro in 11th and 12th grade, they really started piquing my interest. And at that point of time, India was going through, we had just come out of the global recession, and there was a lot of turmoil going on in terms of the balance of payments crisis and oil prices and inflation. And Raghuram Rajan had just joined in as the rock star governor. And, he was a real inspiration to me because I saw how like good policy and right kind of decisions could steer the country in the right direction and like avert crisis, so to say. So for the longest time, I wanted to become a governor of the Central Bank of India, and I. I went to a conference where Raghuram Rajan was speaking, and I went and got a picture click with him and spoke to him for a couple of minutes. And I asked him, I'm at this crossroad where I don't know, should I become an engineer, and took the path that you took via IIT Delhi to IIM to MIT, or should I take the straight path, knowing that I am interested in economics? And so he's like, don't do what I did. Go do your go study economics, and that's what I did.
So So you joined DU, I guess, in Hans Raj College for economics after that. Then right after that, you also got into Bain as an analyst. So I want to understand. So Bain is like a dream job for MBA students most of the time. So how did you get the opportunity so early in your career?
It was honestly just by chance. I was not. It was not something that I was working towards. It was just. I'd heard from my friends that Bain and Company is a consulting firm and it's really prestigious. They had a pre-placement talks, so I went for it, just along with everybody else, without giving it much thought. And um, I think all through my time in DU at Hans Raj, I was working towards getting into Delhi School of Economics, and I wanted to make sure that I sort of cleared the entrance, but also there was another way that you could get through Delhi School, which was through your grades in undergrad. And so I was sort of working towards keeping my grades to a level that would allow me to sort of pass the cutoff and get a direct admission into DSE. But I think this was in our fifth semester or so that Bain came for a pre-placement talk. I sat through it, submitted my resume. It sounded interesting because it's all about problem solving, consulting, and dealing with new challenges, a fast pace of life. So all of that seemed exciting to me because it seemed to align with my strengths. And so I just applied, I submitted my resume and did not expect to get shortlisted because literally everybody in the college was applying. But to my surprise, I got shortlisted and then, went for the interview. Did not have much time to prepare. I like a lot of my friends already were doing case interview prep and guesstimates and stuff like that. I think I had one weekend where I browsed through, what are guesstimates and what do I need to know. Um, and yeah, the interview went well. I think the questions that they asked me were something that I could think on my feet to answer as well. And I was one of the 8 people shortlisted from, I think, 500-ish people who had applied. So my friends were happier for me than I was because I didn't know what I had gotten into. It was not something I had been working towards, but it was just an option that had opened up for me, and so I gave it due thought. Eventually, when I also got into Delhi School of Economics at the end of my sixth semester, I was in the real dilemma of choosing between Bain and DSE, and I went ahead with Bain for a couple of reasons, which I guess explain why I went to Yale to study abroad, which is that I felt like a couple of years of experience really in full time as a professional. Um, Internships help, but they're not the same. So full time experience can often help you figure out what you like. And a lot of times, you think you like something, but as you keep getting more and more information, you update your beliefs on what you like, what you want to do. So I thought that this was an opportunity that not many people got, and the fact that I got this opportunity, I should take it up, learn from a lot of smart people around me, work in an environment that would be challenging for me, scale a steep learning curve, and yeah, I could go and do my master's later at some point if I wanted to. Also, that I sort of wrote emails to a couple of economists, like big names, whose email IDs I found on the internet, and I was like, I want to make this decision. I might also want to do a PhD in the future. What do you recommend? I got mixed opinions. A lot of them were like, experience really helps because even if you want to do your PhD at a later point of time, you should know what you want to work on. Sometimes you could get interested in fields like finance or quantitative finance, which are also not very different from economics or pretty aligned with the field. But Jagdish Bhagwati, who's a very well-known economist, responded to me saying that you should, if you want to do your PhD, maybe do your master's from a more recognized institution that is more recognized globally. So DSE is a great place to study in India. But if you look at the global scale, then there are so many more opportunities out there for you, and you should definitely give that a shot. So yeah, I thought that I was still interested in economics. I still wanted to do my master's, but I postponed my decision to do that for 2 years while I was at Bain.
Got it. So let me get this straight. So you sent cold emails to well-known economists, and everybody responded.
Not everybody responded, but I got a pretty good success rate. I think one of the Ishar Aluwalia, who recently passed away, she also responded. She gave me her phone number. She was like, you can call me. And I spoke to her on the phone. She told me about her son who had, done this dual degree in the US. I think it was joint with Harvard and Stanford, where you could do your public policy along with your MBA. And so she said, there are so many great options out there. And you should, if you get interested in something like consulting, then maybe you want to give that kind of an option a shot as well. So she was really helpful, took out time to speak to me. And I would never have expected that an email sent by someone fresh out of college would warrant a response from well-known people in the world, but it did.
Absolutely great. So I think 2 years you worked there and you became an associate as well. Did you ever think of doing an MBA?
Actually, I took the CAT again pretty randomly without any preparation. I think first year into Bain. It happens around in November, December. So I just joined Bain in August and I took the CAT and got interviews to IIM Bangalore and IIM Lucknow and converted IIM Lucknow. So I did have that option to leave and join IIM Lucknow for my MBA. But I thought long and hard about it to see if that was what I wanted to do. And I thought that MBAs often, like even at Bain, a lot of people did leave to do their MBAs quite early. But I thought that I would gain more from an MBA if at all I wanted to do it after a couple of more years of experience, once I've also reached a managerial level. And I just didn't want to go to school for the name tag. I wanted to really learn and grow as a person, as a professional. And I thought an MBA would be more useful 4 to 5 years into Bain, if at all, rather than just 1 year into Bain. So that was sort of my decision. And I also knew that I was interested more in the economic analysis side of things. So that's when I decided I sort of should apply for my master's rather than do an MBA. I could always do an MBA at a later point. Yeah.
Got it. So in Bain itself, I want to know what is the thing that you learned and when did you realize that your time has ended here?
Well, as I mentioned, I sort of already made up my mind about doing my master's, and 2 years when I got promoted to associate, I started doing more of the managing, started taking on more managerial responsibilities. So I was overseeing a couple of analysts, making work plans. So I still felt like I had a lot of things to learn, a lot of hard skills to pick up before I was ready to take on, a managerial role. And I also didn't see myself just staying in the organization there, because I really love to learn and take on new challenges. And I felt like it was time for me to grow more in other areas or aspects that I hadn't gotten the opportunity to. So I felt that would a master's and further working in the field of economics would be something that I was more suited to and was looking forward to.
Got it. So now we understand you wanted to do masters and specifically in economics, not an MBA right now as of yet. So what was your master's specialization and how did you narrow down the colleges? So how was the decision going on?
I think every person in India who wants to be an economist thinks about London School of Economics as their dream college, dream university. But and I was also like that. I really wanted to get into LSE. Uh, so I applied to a couple of schools, actually most of the schools in Europe, some in UK, some in other countries like Italy or Netherlands, Spain. I looked at the rankings, the world rankings on many platforms, and figured out, okay, so this is like my list of 15 schools that I'm going to apply to. That I only applied to two schools in the US, which was Yale and Columbia. I don't think at that point of time there were many universities offering a master's program for people with a 3-year undergrad from India. Because in the US, an undergrad degree is for 4 years, and a lot of universities require that for you to be able to eligible to apply to that program in the PhD space. So I did not want to apply straight for a PhD because I knew that my chances of getting through were slim. Also because of the eligibility criterion. And I looked at rankings, spoke to a couple of students. I applied widely because I was not sure how my 2-year detour into consulting would be viewed by academic institutions. But it turns out that I, got through 13 out of the 15 schools that I applied to, and then had a big choice set, and finally I think narrowed down. I also got into LSE, which was my dream school, but got into Yale and Columbia as well. And after a bit of research, talking to students, I figured out that I wanted to choose from between Yale, Columbia, and LSE because they were well-known names in the world in this field. The faculty was renowned. The curricula was great. But as I did further research, I found out that the class size in LSE was really large. And the master's program was geared more towards people who wanted to do a PhD. It was more mathematical, less applied. And the atmosphere there was pretty competitive. It was like 200 students competing for one professor's attention because they wanted a reference or a recommendation letter for a PhD going forward. And by that time, I had sort of decided that I liked to apply myself to work, which is what my time at Bain taught me. And I wanted to continue working because that's what excited me and motivated me. I liked learning, but I also liked applying my learnings. So I then, Columbia was a more sort of recent program, was not that well established, and the duration was also a bit longer. It was more expensive. So then I sort of wanted to decide between Yale and LSE. And then Yale, I found out, was a smaller class size, about 30 to 40 students usually. The program allowed us flexibility in the sense that it was focused on international and development economics, but the coursework would teach you the applied skills that you would need on the job if you were to work as an economist. So that was something that I think caught my attention. And then I spoke to some people who had already, been through the program, were placed in various institutions. I also, one of the people I spoke to was also an alum from Bane. So he left Bane to do the same program and then was working in Africa in one of the multilateral organizations. So I spoke to him. He mentioned how the program was structured in a very nice way. It was challenging at the same time. It was exciting. It gave you the opportunity to explore electives beyond the specified courses that you had to take as a student compulsorily. If you were, for example, interested in the environmental economics side of things, or behavioral economics, or financial economics, then you had the option to take electives with different schools at Yale. So if somebody was more interested in macroeconomic side of things, then there was an option to do that. I took some electives in climate change and environment under another Nobel Prize winner, Bill Nordhaus. So those opportunities are afforded to you when you go to institutions like that. You can, sit in lectures delivered by people who are the best in their fields, and that was something that was really exciting for me. But yeah, coming back to your question, the environment at Yale was more collaborative. It was more like a family, what the person told me. And everybody looked out for one another. The program director, Mike Boozer, was really engaged with his students and their professional trajectories. So that personal touch added by the director to the program was also something that was nice. We received a long email from him about how, there was there the different trajectories and places that the alums had reached and how everybody helped one another, and that I saw when I joined the program, that it was just a big family, so everybody is like looking out for each other, and that's what sort of persuaded me to join it.
Yeah. So we now understand why Yale is so good and perfect, I guess, for you. But I want to know why Yale or what Yale looks for when they choose students.
It's difficult to say because I only know my own application. But I think authenticity, being honest to who you are, what you would like, what you're passionate about. If you don't try to add too many embellishments or flourishes just to make your profile look good, and if you just tell your story in the way that it is, I think that's what I think worked for me. I don't think you need to be, you know, the topper throughout your childhood, or have perfect academic scores, or that profile that you have academics as well as extracurriculars. It's just who you are as a person. If you are if you're interested in something, if you're passionate about something, then it usually shines through sooner rather than later. And that I think worked for me.
Got it. So how was your experience at Yale?
My experience at Yale was really good. I mean, I've already spoken a little bit about it. We had people from a lot of nationalities. It was very diverse. It was very different from what I was used to in India. I grew up in Noida near Delhi all my life, stayed there until I moved out to Yale. So the people I had interacted with and the kind of people I met in Hans Raj were also from a very similar background, a very similar cultural setup. Um, and I think coming to Yale sort of was very eye-opening for me, because I could see like there are so many different paths that people take, and so many different sort of cultures and diversity of opinions and beliefs and views. The conversations, you learn so much interacting with people from different walks of life, and also um, you know, it's you do feel homesick for a bit. Missing home cooked food, but you sort of learn to take care of yourself, um, adulting as we call it. And I think the coursework was challenging. I was a bit apprehensive, thinking that I'd taken a break from studies for 2 years. So would that make me would that put me at a disadvantage compared to others who were coming straight from undergrad with all the linear algebra fresh in their heads? But I think I managed pretty well. It was not that hard. I didn't do any sort of revision over the summer. I refused to touch my books, uh, and got straight into it when I reached Yale. And I think the pace at which our course progressed, it sort of gave you the time to recap whatever you had sort of forgotten or thought you had forgotten. So I think also the structure was very different for me. In India, or at least in DU, in my time, once you have picked economics, that is your field. You can't pick electives or at least minor in other subjects. I think now you can. DU does have that option, but our time it was sort of in between the whole 4 year to 3 year thing, and it was chaos. But um, just the fact that you could sit in courses, shop for courses as they call it, you know figure out, is this something you like, take a couple of classes and then take some more classes and then finally pick, okay, so these are the 4 or 5 courses that I want to keep. So it really allows you to explore your interests, instead of needing you to pick something beforehand and then forcing you to stick with it until the end of the semester, like it or hate it. I liked that flexibility. I liked the fact that it was just more applied. The teaching, it was less theoretical. It was more up to date with the frontiers of economic research. So what was good, what was bad, form my own opinions about policies, about issues, about anything under the sun. So it was just a way of thinking that I developed, a way of analysis um, that that taught me how to look through problems and also use data to solve problems. And that's what sort of I got interested in, that you can really, there is one thing such as common sense that you could use to make policies, but that common sense is not always the best or the most cost effective or efficient way to do things or make policies. You have to have data and evidence behind decisions or policies to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I, simple things like, okay, so children's test scores are not that great in a village in Uttar Pradesh. What do? Do we give them books? Do we give them extra after school coaching? What is wrong? What is going on? And unless you first figure out what is going wrong, you are not able to solve the problem in the best way possible. And for that you need data and you need analysis. And that what was that became my interest, and that's what I've been doing since then.
So you also joined MIT as a research associate right after your graduation from Yale. How did you get the opportunity? And was this something that you planned beforehand, as you plan a lot? I think you go 2 years before, like you think about 2 years later what you'll do and then you plan. That's what I can see throughout your journey. So did you plan?
A lot of my plans, sorry to cut you, a lot of my plans don't work out the way I planned them. I planned to go to Delhi school. I left it for Bain. Um, I planned to go back to economic consulting or social sector consulting. At the time I was joining Yale, I thought, I like consulting, I like solving problems, but I want to do it more from an economic policy perspective. So I want to consult with the government and help them make policies and decisions better. That's what I wanted to do. And I got this opportunity to join one of the organizations in India that works with the government on similar things. But their approach was not as data driven as I would have liked. And I felt like I wanted to learn how to apply what I had gained through my coursework at Yale. So our program director sort of connected me with Professor Tavneet Suri at MIT, who I interviewed with and then got the job. And she is at MIT. So I was working at MIT with her on her projects as a research associate. I decided to take that up because at that point of time, there was also some uncertainty with respect to visa issues with Trump. And I felt like I was getting an OPT, which was an optional practical training period for 1 year. plus an extension of 2 years that you can get if your focus area was science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. And since my course was eligible for that, so I could have worked in the US for 3 years. So I wanted to utilize that opportunity to gain experience and learn data skills. How research is done, how people think about solving questions, just learn from the person I was working with. So that's how I got the job at MIT. I decided not to go back to India for a bit to gain this experience, as it was not easy to come back and do this. I could only have done it then because of the visa things I mentioned, and it was something that I thought about after I got the job, just like Bain. I did not think about doing a pre-doctoral program, as you call it here, or an RA-ship, before I actually had the option to do that. So I decided to take the plunge and see what economic research looked like.
And what were you working on there?
Yeah, so there's a field in economics called experimental economics within development economics. It basically deals with randomized control trials. And Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, and Michael Kramer, who recently won the Nobel Prize, they won the Nobel for introducing randomized control trials into the field of economics. So randomized control trials actually come from the field of medicine. So when the COVID vaccines were being tested, you divide people into a control group who receive a placebo and a treatment group who receive the vaccine, and you compare the outcomes between the treated group and the control group. So imagine that in an economic setting where you are giving some people a certain intervention which helps solve a certain problem, and you're not giving the other people the intervention. And then you imagine that the people who received the intervention would look like the people who did not receive the intervention in the absence of the intervention. So it's a counterfactual. You compare outcomes between the people who received something and the people who did not receive something. So what I was working on was a universal basic income project in Kenya. Here, we were giving people money, a certain amount of money for a certain period of time, no strings attached, unconditional transfers, and measuring their socioeconomic outcomes over a period of time. So this study will go on for 12 years, and we're going to be measuring the outcomes of the same people who we had enrolled in the beginning of the study over a longer period of time. The idea is to understand, there are a lot of social protection policies, like you have Narega in India, which is a workfare program. In the US, you have some disability insurance, you have some, tax credit that you can get for working. There are lots of such policies, unemployment insurance, that help people with the downside risks of not having money or not being employed. So what we were trying to test was, if you consolidate everything and just give people the money and the option to choose what they want to do with it, is that better? Well, we can't measure whether it's better or worse, but how does that impact people? What kind of decisions do they take? How do they choose to spend their money? And is that money, is that transfer able to lift them out of poverty permanently? So what we saw in the surveys that we conducted and the data that we analyzed is that some people were moving away from informal wage work, which is, imagine people working on somebody else's farms during in seasonal times, in lean seasons, or when you don't have work on your own farms, to starting up their own businesses, which were a sustainable source of income for them. So people, and we're talking about really small businesses here, like, a hawker or a vendor or somebody selling household goods. So these are villages in rural Kenya. And we're giving every individual some amount of money for some period of time. And this is what we saw. We saw that, consumption had increased, the people were doing much better. They had improved their housing situation. They had increased their nutrition intake. We didn't see much evidence on education, which was surprising. But a lot of people are concerned about the fact that if you give people money, they're going to spend it all away on temptation goods like alcohol. But we didn't see any of that happening so far. And it did seem like giving people money was actually helping them overcome some of the hunger and poverty that they experienced over the year. So this is a study that's going to go on for a long time, because we want to see if outcomes only change temporarily or for the longer term, and if aid that goes to Africa, a lot of aid goes to Africa. If some of it could be used to give people just transfers instead of other programs. So that's what we were working on. I was leading the analysis, the data collection on the project, and I learned a lot about how these things are done. So that was
Got it.
my work at MIT.
So, how did you realize that, okay, this is because, as you said, it is a 12-year long project? Okay. So, when did you realize that you want to move on from this and now finally join World Bank?
So, I was in an academic research setup, where things are done very differently. Some academic projects also are relevant to policy, but a lot of these projects are for satiating the academic interest of people. Questions that academicians might be interested in, but policymakers are not necessarily interested in. I had already learned the skills that I could have learned in that job. I had become proficient at statistical softwares and analysis and the econometrics, stuff that I needed to know and be good at before I changed jobs. So I had gotten the skills and thought that I wanted to explore something different. I wanted to see more of the policy side of things. I wanted to work on projects that were not just of interest from an academic standpoint, but also from a policymaker standpoint. And the World Bank, as an institution, I think is a great platform, because they have a lot of projects going on with different governments in multiple countries. And I came across this post on an alumni group where somebody, like one of my current manager, had written that she was seeking somebody to work with her on so and so projects in the South Asia region's chief economist office. And I thought, I have the context of the region, and the project seemed interesting. One of my and it was manager. A good place to join the World Bank. Once you are there, you have the flexibility to move around teams and groups and units, and choose different projects. But as a starting point, it seemed like a good opportunity to me. So I thought I should go ahead and take it up. I applied, received an offer to join, and I joined in June of this year.
Got it. And I'm sure that you experience so many things. I'm sure there are many skills that you acquired within every aspect and every experience. But if you had to just say to a 12th grader, or maybe somebody who is aspiring something after bachelor's, that okay, learn these two skills which will make a difference for your future. So what are the two skills that you could think of?
I think taking initiative and going above and beyond, just being responsible for your own professional development, doing more than what is required by your school or your college, exploring your interests and exploring what you want to do, what you are excited by, and working towards that. Just having that, motivation to push yourself to know more and do more and acquire the skills that you need to get there. So I think the first step is awareness about your own self and awareness about the opportunities out there in the world. One of my friends, she, in 10th grade, took up online courses to see what she was interested in, and she figured out that she was interested in the brain and how there are so many unknowns about how the brain processes things. And she decided she wanted to be a neuroscientist, and she is now at Harvard pursuing a PhD in neuroscience. So some people make that decision early on in life, but you have to sort of want to explore these things, because as a CBSE student, you are never exposed to the field of neuroscience. So you have to go out there, you have to see, what you might be interested in. There are so many resources available on the internet in today's time, that just taking that initiative to figure out what you're excited by is sometimes, defines your career going forward, like for my friend. And then, once you do have an idea, or it's also fine if you don't, you can eliminate some options and go with the flow and see at every point in time what you're interested in and what you're excited by. But then acquiring those skills. So for me, I would say that I knew that data and analysis was something that I was excited by in a more applied sense, in the field of economics, rather than computer science, which is also a lot of data science, but I wanted to do more policy work. So in my winter vacations in undergrad, I took it upon myself to learn R, which is a statistical software, because I felt like it was not something that was taught in Hans Raj. It was just something that I knew would be useful in my professional career going forward, and maybe that's something that differentiated me from other applicants as well. I don't know, but I, did a lot of courses on R. I felt like that would be something that I would be able to also add to my profile if I were looking for an internship, because I should have something to offer to somebody who is willing to hire me as an intern. So I learned Excel, I learned R, and thought that this is a good starting point. I can always build more on it as I gain more knowledge. But I think having those skills and figuring out what is needed to get you to a certain place always really helps. And the second thing I would say is networking. I think networking, not in the superficial sense of like introducing yourself to somebody at a networking event and then forgetting all about it, but building quality connections, which don't have to be forced. They could be your organic connections. I benefited a lot from the alumni group at Yale, and I still continue to, and from the alumni group of MIT, JPAL, IPA, from where I found the World Bank job. I found my internship in my second year through LinkedIn. I saw a post, applied, got it. So I think always keeping your eyes and ears open and building connections, helping people, also, good karma, being part of the process of giving and taking is something that is very helpful. Like I'd written emails to people, I'd never expected anything to happen, but that initiative, that desire to connect with people and learn from people who have, been through this journey before and are working in a place that you aspire to work at, sometimes, you are surprised by how willing people are to talk about what they went through, give you advice, answer your questions. It's just, yeah, I think it's all about initiative.
Got it. And can you just explain maybe how a week in your life currently looks like?
Sure. So I was working on this report that is one of the biannual publications of the South Asia Chief Economist's Office. And I just got done with it. So I'm transitioning over to another project right now. But so it was a collaborative effort. We have about one meeting, two meetings a day in the morning just to align, check in on what we are to do. Sometimes during the day, if we have some particular things that we need to discuss, and you do your own research, have a work plan to go by, even if it's not a day-to-day work plan, but you just have like deadlines and things that you need to achieve by a certain point of time. You you know have your own work streams, but you also have some like joint deadlines. So there is a part of individual research and analysis that you have to do, write the report, edit it, also talk to your teammates about what their progress looks like and how you can work better together. So it's not very structured. It is very different from how my week looked at, for example, at Bain, where we had, very, very clear cut, um, defined work streams for the day, because usually we had a daily deliverable. I used to work in the private equity group, which was one of the most fast-paced groups at Bain. And the turnaround time for projects was really short, and we were working 10-11 hour days sometimes. Here it's not that hectic. uh, we do have deliverables and deadlines, but they are more flexible in nature. You already know that you're working towards something that has to go out 2 weeks later, so you can manage your time better, as opposed to something that has to go out at the end of the day. So I think, in terms of working hours, I work normal hours, not necessarily a 9 to 5. I'm not expected to be online for a certain period of time. I sometimes work better at night, and so I will start doing my work at like 10 p.m. But I only have to, make sure to attend the meetings and meet the deadlines. Other than that, my time is my own to allocate the way I want to. I think hybrid work has also changed that for many people. Being in the office, you don't have that flexibility. I go into work a couple of days a week, not every day. Most of the time, I work from home, and so yeah, I've been enjoying it so far.
So I remember you telling me that you wanted to get into more social consulting when you left Bain. And you said the major contrast between, I think you already said what the major contrasting factor is between Bain compared to World Bank. Do you think you are where you wanted to be when you left Bain? I think it was maybe a couple of years back or more than that.
I'm not sure I had a clear sense of where I wanted to be when I left Bain. But I do think that as I learn more about the world, where I want to be also sort of changes with that. So my ambitions are dynamic. What I want to do is I know for a certain period of time what I want to do, but I am always open to learning more and changing my decisions instead of sticking to something, even if I have better information available. So that's eventually, I think I do want to go back to doing some sort of social impact consulting work. But what I did realize after my time at Yale was the the missing aspect of data, in the way consulting is typically done. It's not as rigorous, also because the timelines are short, and some of these projects require a longer period of time to actually come up with evidence on what works and what doesn't work. So going forward, I think I would like to come back to India and set up something that allows me, or join an organization that allows me to use data to make decisions in a better way for governments, with governments. That was my broad goal at that point of time as well, but I didn't know the journey that I would have to take to get there. And so I think I'm still on that journey of acquiring skills, of growing personally and professionally to be able to do that effectively. I think I take every day as it comes, and the only objective is to grow every day, and learn new things every day. And as soon as I think that I'm ready to, you know, take on something else, or if I feel like I've stopped learning or growing, I would find other avenues or opportunities, and until I get where I want to be.
Well, personally, I loved this session today. And I love the perfect balance that you have with experience and learning. You are not leaving either. Normally people say when you're experienced, you have some stringent mindset. But you're learning as you experience more and more. And I love the perfect balance that you have right now. So I think my questions are done from my side, and I'll put this across this opportunity to others who have questions for you. And let's start. Are you ready for that Q&A?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. So our first question is by Neharika. Where do you see your career trajectory going into the future? Right.
I think I already touched upon that a little bit. I think the World Bank is an organization where I can explore the operational as well as the research side of policy, and I think that there is still so much more for me to learn in terms of not just crunching numbers and analyzing data, but also forming partnerships with the government, dealing with partner organizations, implementing surveys on the field, converting something from just an idea to reality. That whole process, all the challenges that it entails. So that's something that I am looking to learn during my time at the bank. And then going forward, as I mentioned, I would like to take all my skills together, and come back to India to work with governments and have them make decisions better.
Got it. So Himanshu has something to say, but it's not a question. So he's just saying you're so humble about your achievements. So kudos to that.
Thank you.
Moving forward, Siddhant is saying, can I get into a Ivy League or Oxford with an average due college for economics?
I believe so. As long as, so I think during my time in DU, the overall university topper was from one of I wouldn't like to call any college average, but one of the non-North campus colleges, which are not so well known. So there's always opportunity for you to make the best of the situation you are in. And nowadays, I don't think that, your average, even if the college has historically been construed as average, because the cutoffs are going so high that, even uh, in any college that was until now thought of as average, you have the opportunity to shine and learn from your peers, because chances are that they're also smart people, you know and there are always avenues for you to grow as a person. There are courses on the internet, there are internships that you can go to, you can talk to professors. Just if you are motivated and if you are willing to work towards your goals, then I think there is no limitation on which college you're coming from.
Got it. So, Jeevan, I think your question about her work day has been answered already. So, I'll just skip that. And we are going to Naman. I think he's a CA. So, he's asking what is the role of a CA at either of the places, that is Bain and World Bank. Any idea?
At Bain, I think some people were pursuing CA on the side, but I think more I think I know more CAs going into the big four rather than the big three, which is the KPMG, Deloitte, EY sort of places. But as a CA, I think I personally, coming from a science background, when I was to read balance sheets, it took me a while to get through these things. And so, as a CA, I think, especially on the private equity side, when we're working with clients, that knowledge of accounting comes in very handy, and it's definitely an advantage. It would make some things easier for you, but at the bank, I'm not 100% sure. There might be the accounting departments where your CAs are hired and your skills might come in handy. But personally, I have no experience, so I don't think I can be very useful.
Okay. I hope, Naman, you got somewhat of an answer and whatever we could deliver right now. So we provided. Next, we have Mayuresh. She's asking how much time did you allot to upgrading your skills, both in Bain and World Bank?
I think I try to upgrade my skills all the time. That's something that is a major priority for me. I like to learn and take on new challenges, and upgrading my skills is one of the things that can be a challenge and also an opportunity to learn. So um, as I mentioned, during my undergrad, I learned software skills on statistical softwares and Excel and stuff. At Bain, that came in handy because I already knew a lot of Excel. But at Bain, I picked up some more skills specific to data analysis on Excel, because most of the work that we did not require complex software analysis. It was easy to do on Excel. I learned how to communicate better. I learned how to do things effectively in a shorter span of time. These are softer skills, they're not hard skills. But if you are aware of where you're lacking and what you need to work on, then I think that constant process of assessing where you are at every whatever frequency you're comfortable with, just thinking about what you need to work on going forward and actively pursuing that, you'd find that if you go to your manager and tell them, I'm trying to work on these skills, and if you could give me projects or opportunities that allow me to upgrade my skills or enhance my skills, they would be more than happy to take that into account. So I think I did that, and I continue to work on things that I am not that good at yet.
Got it. Rahul is asking, can you suggest some good skill up program for experienced people who is already in market research, data crunching, but wanted to enter Big Four consulting?
I am not very aware, but I think there are some programs, like if you are already proficient with analysis, then there are some other courses that you could take, for example, in finance or strategy, or the other sort of fields that you're expected to pick up, sometimes on the job. But if you already have the hard skills part of it sorted, then maybe take more business oriented courses. On the internet, there are lots of platforms. I don't have specific courses in mind, but I think topical courses would then round up your profile much better, and allow you to present a holistic sort of CV or resume to the companies you're applying at.
Got it. I hope you got it, Rahul. If anything else, do contact us. Naman is asking, do World Bank or Bain take interns in from second year of UG commerce background students?
So Bain, I think, does not take interns, a fresher, like people who are still during in their undergrad. They do take interns from MBAs. So like first year MBA students I have seen come as interns at Bain. World Bank takes in World Bank or the UN network, I would say, takes in interns, but it's quite hard to land an internship with these organizations, often because the processes are not very transparent. It's a little bureaucratic. You're not sure if uh, if the position that you see on the internet is actually open or not. Like sometimes it's just open for internal applicants, but you can't tell if it's worth it for you to apply to these positions or not. So I would say that to find such opportunities, if you're able to talk to people at the organization, sometimes they would have a better sense of if there are any opportunities available and whether or not you should apply for something. And then you could always tell people to send opportunities your way. I have done that on many occasions with people who have contacted me, if I saw something relevant for them and what they were looking for. But in general, as a second year student in undergrad, I would say that you should focus your energies on where your effort has a higher chance of return. So these organizations can be a little tricky in terms of accepting interns, and they're accepting applications from the world, literally. So it is difficult to land an internship with these organizations, but there are plenty of companies in India that I have also just cold emailed people for internships and actually got them. The startups especially, because they are always looking for extra hands. They're in the starting phases of their business, and it's also a chance for you to learn and take on more responsibility as you can prove once you join, how much you're capable of taking, that that there is a better chance of landing those internships. And so maybe you focus your energies where they're more useful.
Got it. So Sankalp is asking, do they prefer CFAs with not very high level of experience?
Who is they?
Yeah, can you just specify who they is? Then we can take up your question. We'll move forward. Arya is asking, can you please tell me how you managed your finance for paying such a huge amount of fees in an Ivy League college? Did you get a scholarship or any sponsorship?
Yeah. So I took up a loan from one of the banks in India. At that time, I think I was lucky. The exchange rate was not that bad, and also the interest rates were not that bad. But I also applied for a scholarship, a loan scholarship, in fact, which I got. It's the Narottam Sekhsaria scholarship. They gave me interest-free loan for 15 lakhs to pursue my master's, and the rest I sort of covered from my bank loan. And then I did that. When you're working here in the US, it sort of helps you pay back your loan much faster because you benefit from the exchange rate. But yeah, it's hard to front that up investment, and always grateful to my parents and my family for helping me out and supporting me with with not just this but also the finances.
Got it. So how much time does it take to repay the loan?
Took me 2 years.
2 years. Got it. So yeah, coming back to Sankalp's question, do they means Big Three or the World Bank? Do they prefer CFAs with not a very high level of experience?
I think a lot of people are clearing their CFA while there. So it's not something that is a make or break in your application. I know a lot of people in the sort of analyst batch when I joined were just starting to clear CFA, and kept trying, over the years. So it's not looked at as it's definitely an advantage if you have a CFA, if you've cleared whatever level 3. But I wouldn't say that it's a disadvantage at all if you don't have that experience, or are just starting out. It's not a qualification that you know would screen in or out your application. Um, so yeah, it's definitely an advantage, but not a disadvantage.
Got it. I think we'll take up one last question by Samarth. What should be the paths to highlight in or to work upon to build a CV shortlisting? Is it for MBBS? Samarth, can you just cross check and tell me for MBBS, and can business students land into a UN network job? Should I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I. So, yeah. So, the question is, what should be the paths to highlight or work upon to build a CV shortlisting for the MBBS? And can business students land into the UN network job?
So I think if I understand the question correctly, what you need to highlight in your resume is your um, is the skills that you bring to the table. Uh, if your job requires, usually the job description is pretty explicit on the kinds of candidates they're looking for and the kind of skills they're looking for, and it's very important to tailor your resume based on the job that you're applying for. So if your job highlights management experience or experience in um, a certain field of business, then you should try to find ways, or your like interlink your experiences with what they want, because the keywords are what they're what are going to catch their attention. So I always believe that a resume should have an assertion and an evidence. So if you have experience in a certain field, or if you have accomplished something, you should always back it up with some detail, some result, some impact on what you did and what it led to, even if it did not finally materialize. There should be a clear link between your contribution and what happened to it. So highlighting often with numbers in your resume, your experiences, and experiences specific to the experiences that are listed on the job description, are good ways to catch the eye of the recruiter or somebody who's screening your applications. And then I think um, overall clear, something that you could look over quickly and gauge, what the candidate is offering, often helps. So having a clear sort of structure, not being extra wordy, paying more attention to the more important experiences, and knowing where to limit the words to certain experiences that are not as relevant. I think just that is what I think makes a good resume. In terms of getting opportunities at the UN network, I think IFC, which is International Finance Corporation, it's a sister organization of the World Bank, the IMF, and there a lot of MBA graduates work, because it's more of an investment arm. So you have opportunities to work as an investment professional, as an investment officer, because they oversee the lending operations and investment operations. So it is a very MBA finance specific sort of field, and a lot of like MBAs or PhDs in finance end up at the IFC. That it is a bank after all, and it is like a financial institution after all. So there is always scope for people with an MBA to apply and also work, like successfully convert their applications to work at the UN network.
Got it. So I'm going to end this session here today. Thank you so much for joining Inside IM. And Preksha, thank you so much. I personally don't say this all the time, obviously, but I personally really enjoyed your mindset, I would say, specifically.
Thank
I
you.
really like it. And it's like ever growing mindset. So I always appreciate that. So thank you so much for sharing everything that you have experienced as of yet. And I hope our audience gets to know you more, and you can just maybe approach her on LinkedIn. She will reply. I am very positive about this. So thank you so much for joining Inside IM, Preksha, and all our audience. So if you have any more questions, just maybe ask her personally or in our channel. I'll get it through to you. And all the best for your career further, Preksha. And yeah, thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks, Nandini. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.